All right, welcome everybody for the January 21st, 2025 City Council meeting. I'll call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. And before we get started, I'll ask Stephanie to read the ground rules for the hybrid meeting and then call the roll.
Tonight's meeting will be held in person with a virtual meeting component. If you are participating virtually, please make sure the name shown at the bottom of your video view is the name you would like the mayor to use. You can change this by right-clicking on the three dots in the upper corner of your video view and clicking Rename. Audience members present in the council chambers will be called upon first during public comment periods. Those participating remotely should virtually raise your hand if you wish to speak. To virtually raise your hand, click on Participants and then click on Raise Hand. If you are participating by phone only, press *9 to raise your hand. Please limit comments to 3 minutes. All right, roll call. Brent Gary,
Here.
Richard Bloom,
Here.
Fred Brink,
Here.
David Fetto,
Here.
May Hayes,
Here.
Kate Moran,
Present.
John Smart,
Here.
Ken Stoker.
Here. Thank you, Stephanie. Councilmember Fetto, will you please lead us in Pledge of Allegiance this evening?
Public for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Fetto. Council, the agenda is before you this evening. Are there any changes to the agenda this evening? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I move to approve the agenda as presented. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, Council. We do not have any presentations this evening, and that moves us right to our consent agenda, which is considered standard business for council, taken with one motion and a vote. So consent agenda includes payment of the bills, approve the minutes of the regular meeting January 7th, 2025. Resolution 0425 authorizing staff to pursue annexation of 9.75 acres of city-owned land into the city of West Richland city limits. Motion authorizing the mayor to execute a Public Works Trust Fund loan agreement for a lift station retrofit project. A motion to approve a purchase and sale agreement for Belmont Lot 3-1. A motion to accept the water main replacement project on Silan and Arlington as complete. Motion to accept the 2024 pavement preservation and street striping project as complete. Motion to accept 2024 school zone pedestrian safety project as complete. Motion to accept Candy Mountain Pathway Kennedy Road crossing project as complete. Motion to authorize reimbursement agreement for Frank Teagues LLC and Lewis and Clark Ranch EIS. And a motion authorizing amendment 1 to the planning services contract with Burke for the Lewis and Clark Ranch EIS. Is there anyone from the audience here tonight that would like to speak to our consent agenda this evening? Seeing no one in-house, anyone virtually like to speak to the consent agenda this evening? If so, raise your virtual hand or *9 to be recognized. I see no one virtually. Stephanie, do you?
I do not see anyone, no.
Thank you. Then we'll let's see. So with that, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented this evening?
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, Council. And this is the first opportunity for citizen public comment for items that are not on the agenda this evening. So if you wish to address council, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to provide comments. We'll start with the in-house individuals here, and then we'll move to the virtual attendees. So anybody in-house like to address council for items not on the agenda this evening? Come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please. Limit your comments to 3 minutes. And as a reminder, council does not have conversation back and forth with presenters or questions that are brought forth during public comment period.
I just here to ask for just a little bit of help.
Just name and address.
Oh,
please, first.
okay, my name is Lloyd Bender. I'm at 786 South 38th Avenue in West Richland. We're just looking for a little bit of help. The neighbors in between Broadview and Grant that we know to get something done with the speeding up and down the road there on 38th. It's become almost like a drag racing deal. And I'm disabled home all the time, and I'm able with my security cameras to watch about 450 feet of my road out in front of me. And they fly through it day and night. Starts at 4:30 in the morning and it goes all night long and all day long. Big semi trucks coming through there, cement trucks, they cut through instead of going down around bombing range. But the speed limit's 30 and they're well over that speed limit and someone's going to get hurt. The buses stop there several times a day. There's several less disabled people that are there besides myself, but there's others that walk that route and stuff. And so we need to get that taken care of because it's bad. And then at bar closing time, it turns into a drag race. And that can't go on. We have I just guess if like anybody else, we pay a lot of taxes, a lot of dang taxes. They've gone up a lot since we moved here 14 years ago, a lot. And matter of fact, the past 6 years. But the reality is we need to have our West Richland police use the abilities they have to stop this, right? I know they can't, start write a few tickets. I mean, you can come in front of my house, sit in my driveway and write 100 tickets in a day easily. And so it's time that needs to get stopped so we can protect. And us people that live in a residential area can have a residential environment rather than Highway 99. Okay, that's it. Thank you. Oh, and I also would like to know, we've heard a rumor about the chief of police, what's going on with him. We'd like to know about that because that's concerning. We want to know what exactly is happening. If we have a chief of police and if we have someone to lead, us, especially with the things that are going on across the United States, make sure that we're protected, and we can rely on them to be there and a call. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else in house this evening? Sure. Podium, state your name and address for the record, if you would, please, and then 3 minutes on your comments.
Carl Baker, 4501 West Latin. And I'll just kind of reinforce the question about the police situation and the votes of no confidence that we're seeing from the police officers union and that sort of thing. We'd just like to have a little bit more visibility over what's going on there. I expect you probably would too.
Anyone else in house? We'll go ahead and move on to anybody virtually, *9 or raise your hand to be recognized. You'll have 3 minutes to make comments. I see we have one hand up. Ms. Aldridge, we'll unmute you and you'll have 3 minutes to address council. Yeah.
Thank you. And Nancy Aldridge, 3405 South Lake Drive. I have to apologize for any background noise. I'm in the Florida Keys, and in some ways that's a third world country when it comes to internet. So I'm with everybody else. I'd like to know what the status is of Chief Grego's employment. There are 3 lawsuits pending against the city by the police association, a police officer, and the Wiley family from the Wiley shooting. Concerning the Wiley shooting, regional law enforcement agencies were forced to take leadership role at that. And Chief Grego has stated that he has openly admitted to being overwhelmed and actually didn't know what to do. The commanders Kelly and Coach showed up without their firearms, and these are the police management that we have overseen our police officers protecting the city. Has Chief Grego quit? Has he been fired, or has he been put on admin leave? Have the 2 commanders been disciplined or put on admin leave? Instead of doing what I've asked here, has the city focused on firing or put on the officers who have spoken why have the officers who have spoken up concerning the incompetency of leadership, blatant harassment, and discrimination, why have they been fired or put on admin leave? These lawsuits by the police association, the police officers, and the family really do amount to a lot of money. And how much money so far has been spent concerning these lawsuits? And why should we, the citizens, pay if the city is found at fault, especially if they could have resolved these issues by the dismissal of the police chief? Thank you.
Yeah, I see Lisa Nelson. Miss Alders, put your hand down, please. Lisa Nelson, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Want to make sure you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, as you can see, Mayor, there's a big elephant in the room here, and I would also like to address that. I have maybe 3 specific questions. I'd like to know what date did the mayor know that Chief Grego's departure was imminent? And secondly, I would like to know why nothing has been released to the public as of yet. And third, I'd like to know why nothing has been released to the officers on the ground. This is a serious issue, and as you can see, your constituents are very concerned. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else virtually? Star 9 or raise your virtual hand to be recognized. I see no one else virtually. Stephanie, do you?
I do not see anyone, no.
Thank you. Then we'll go ahead and move on to public or ordinances, resolution, motions, and public hearings. Item 8A and 8B are a public hearing and an ordinance regarding a zone change for siting of major utility facilities. Our Community Development Director, Eric Mendenhall, will present staff report this evening. Eric?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Before you this evening is a zoning code text amendment changing our land use matrix to allow for major utility facilities, which are water towers, water pumps, water reservoirs, things of that nature that the city uses and maintains and operates for the public good, from not being allowed in some zones or a conditional use in some zones to be permitted in all zones. And this is to help facilitate a lot of the existing infrastructure that the city has in the city. Public Works currently is moving forward with upgrading some of our water well facilities and installing some other water infrastructure to ensure water availability for our residents and into the future. And so as we reviewed this, our existing text that we have, we felt that it was impeding opportunities for the city and its growth economically, and being able to provide necessities such as water and sewer services. So we're proposing a change. The staff put this together. The Planning Commission reviewed this at their meeting in January and unanimously recommended approval of the zoning code text amendment, and staff is presenting that before you this evening with that recommendation.
Thank you, Eric. And with that, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing at 6:14. If you would like to make comments to this agenda item, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. We'll start with in-house first and then go to virtual. Anybody in-house for the public hearing text amendment to allow major utility facilities? Seeing no one in-house, we'll go virtually, star 9 or raise your virtual hand to be recognized for this agenda item. I see no one virtually. Stephanie, do you?
I do not.
With that, I will go ahead and close the public hearing at 6:14. We have ordinance 1-25, a text amendment to allow major utility facilities. Council, do I have a motion?
I move to adopt ordinance 01-25, amending the West Richland Municipal Code to change major utility facilities as a permitted use in all zones.
Again.
Motion and a second. Council, are there any questions of Eric that might not have been answered in the staff report this evening? Councilmember Smart?
Yes, so if I understand this right, currently to put a public utility facility of some sort on a piece of property in a residential neighborhood, it's conditional use, which means that the neighbors would need to be contacted before the use is permitted, and that the use would also be proposed to city council, and that council would have the opportunity to just help decide if that was an adequate permitted use. So correct me, Mr. Mendenhall. Thank you.
Yes, so it would be a conditional use in the residential land use districts. So the neighbors would be notified. It does not come to council. It would go to the planning commission for their review and approval. So that's the difference in what you're presenting there. So this would take that opportunity to go to a planning commission meeting away. These facilities are water reservoirs that are typically in neighborhoods. They're water wells that are, again, typically in neighborhoods. So to me, while they are major, they also include substations for the residences, which are also in a lot of neighborhoods. So just trying to help streamline that so that it doesn't require extra process, require Public Works to spend extra money on putting together proposals to go to the planning commission and staff time to go through that when they are necessities.
Okay, well, my continuing comment is that without them being a conditional use, it does not have to go before the planning commission, and council would not necessarily get a chance to vote for it, although they could perhaps withhold funding, which is pretty rare. So I guess what I'd like to say is that these utilities, all of the possibilities from substations to water tanks to well pumps, fire stations perhaps, city salt sheds, who knows what would come up in the future that would be considered one of these utilities. The reason we made it conditional, I mean, we understand that fire stations need to be in residential districts usually, but we also understand that we'd like to get the people's feedback on whether they want to have that in their neighborhood or not. And actually, I think that the Planning Commission, being representatives of the public as well as the council, should have the opportunity to review each of these uses before they are imposed on neighbors without any, due process, I would say at this point. So I'm very much against this. I don't think it's that much work. And I would ask, how many times do we actually install public facilities? I mean, maybe one every couple of years or maybe one every year. I don't think it's frequent enough to be considered a great enough burden to take away the checks and balances that we have on the process now. And I want to make sure that our residents have the opportunity to give their feedback, like they did with, for example, the police station, before we go forward with that.
I want to correct something real quick, John. This does not include fire stations or police stations. Those have their own separate line. So it would not include those types of facilities.
It's good clarification. Thank you. Still, I just don't think it's frequent enough to be that much of a bother. I'd like to keep it the way it is. So that's what my vote will be tonight. Thank you.
Councilmember Bloom.
Mr. Smart, I had some of the similar concerns until I started thinking through this a little bit further. We are in control of the aspects of it. Obviously, if we start to put in another, what came to mind was a major sewer lift station or something of that nature, which would be I know some residents down in the Brotherhood have complained, but we've mitigated that. A conditional use would only be for us to mitigate. And I think it's within council's priority to, have Public Works, if they put in something, to put an appropriate mitigation. Unfortunately, I don't think we actually, Mr. Mendenhall, put in we don't have actually a definition of a major vice minor that clear. So it's what came to my mind was, if we put a sewage treatment plant in the middle of I think that's something for us to consider early on. So I don't think it's unusual. I think putting conditional use on what would be a city action is just redundant. So that's why I removed my objection. So it's a waste of our planning commission aspects. If we are, is something that Public Works will have to bring to us as to planning. And I think we can look for those mitigating factors without going through the cycle.
Thank you. We'll come back to you. Councilmember Moran?
Thank you. I actually am looking at the code right now, and I wanted to, I guess, maybe clarify that there is a difference between the major and the minor utility facilities in the code. And it spells out all of the different things. For instance, for major utility would be spray fields, power generating facilities, natural gas generator facilities, irrigation canals, ponds, reservoirs, water towers, reservoirs. And then minor, it goes in to talk about under that what utility facilities minor is in the definitions. So it does what I see here is fairly good at separating out major and minor, just for clarification purposes.
Councilmember, Mr. Smart?
Yes, and this changes it for major utility facilities, I believe, right?
Yes, that's correct. I'd also like to add that I forgot in my staff report to mention is that the CD subcommittee did make a recommendation to pass as a unanimous vote.
Yeah, I must have been confused or don't remember that one. So, but that's okay.
You sit on that committee.
I do sit on that committee, Eric, and I don't remember talking about this one. But nevertheless, I certainly am aware of it now, and I still don't like the idea of getting rid of the potential safeguards that come along with having it be a conditional use. And I think that a major utility like a water tower or something like that is significant. I think that also how that gets mitigated, say we want to put visual blockage or something like that to something that might be considered unsightly. Or maybe there's an odor that's generated from some sort of process for a water treatment or who knows what. I really want those type. If something like that's look, put myself in the shoes of the neighbor who's going to receive one of these things, and if I have BLM property next to me, and I would like to be able to, and it's in a residential district, and I'd like to be able to have some say and a little more voice and power as a resident to put my input in on something like that before it happens. I would also say that these ordinances that we generate are not just for this council. This council is temporary. There will be other people running the city in the future. And we can all sit here and shake our heads like, yeah, we're all great people and we wouldn't do anything nasty to residents. But I want the ordinance, if it's going to exist, to protect the citizens first. And if it's a little more work for the city, that's just how it goes. I think the city works hard already. I understand that. This is just part of what we need to do, in my humble opinion, to operate with regard to our citizens and their opinions. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Brink?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mendenhall, I apologize. I'm going to apologize for asking you this question, and it's really prompted by Councilmember Smart's comments as well. Is it possible for you to quantify approximately how much time your staff or city staff spends in addressing issues that this ordinance is expected to alleviate? Is that possible for you to somehow quantify that?
Well, kind of. I would say that in the most simple of cases, it would probably take an estimation of 30 to 40 hours to process the conditional use permit. We would be sending out public notification to all of the neighbors, so that price varies depending on the number of neighbors within that 600-foot radius that we send out to. And there's postage costs associated with that. Which to me, that's just part of notifying the public if that's the direction to go, right? I think that's just part of it. But as far as staff time goes, I think the simplest process would be 30 to 40 hours. And then for a more complex one, it would be at least double that.
All right, thank you. And then I have one follow-on question. Approximately over the last several years, approximately how many times has staff had to address this similar issue?
The last major utility facility that we've had to process was a Benton REA substation off of Rupert Road. That went through that process. I would say looking to the future with the development that we're seeing and everything that's coming online as part of the Heights at Red Mountain, the development up off of Paradise, and then what's coming in on the Lewis and Clark Ranch, that we're going to be seeing a lot of these, I would say several a year, due to the amount of development that we're seeing coming through the pipe right now.
But these major utilities that are being contemplated for Lewis and Clark Ranch and other developments are incorporated already into the plan that's being developed. In other words, locations are being identified where reservoirs would have to be placed in other major utilities. Is that correct?
I would say approximate locations for them, yes. And for the final resting spot where they're actually going to be located, I would say no. Those are more at not the 30,000 foot elevation that we're currently in, but it's going to be more when a subdivision comes in. Okay, this subdivision is within that area and they have some land that's perfectly located for this type of reservoir or whatever. And so then we would be looking to attach that mitigation.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Bloom?
In citing a major utility facility, would a SEPA analysis be required?
Depends on the facility. There's some are exempt. There's a threshold that they'd have to exceed, and I don't have all of that in front of me at this moment to give you a specific answer to that question.
Because that provides public some opportunity for comment and review, especially for neighbors nearby. And from that standpoint, I just wonder if maybe our definitions of utility facility major, I was looking for major utility facility the other way. If that was misconstrued because we didn't take into consideration the exemptions that SEPA provides, which would somewhat be in there. But again, I think it from a practical standpoint of our other processes we have, I think reviews of plats, et cetera, would cover the necessary discussions. So, because most of this will be cited before anybody's living there.
Roscoe, you have comments?
Yeah, Council, go back prior, Mr. Mendenhall being the director, community development director. Your zoning map had a capital facility zoning that his predecessor did away with. Also, all the park zoning went away with, and he thought it all had to have some other zoning. And so that went away. Capital facilities, which was city-owned property that was designated, purchased, or owned by the city for a specific capital project. They did away with it. So anytime I want to do anything with a well or reservoir or any type of improvements, I have a non-conforming use currently, right now. So you ask how often this comes up? I've got 7 current projects right now that because that zoning went away, you fixed it for parks. This is a Band-Aid so that I can move forward with 7 major projects. You ask it's time, it's money, and it's not our money. It's everybody that's sitting here listening to this money. So this was a Band-Aid to fix capital projects, city-owned capital projects, so these projects can continue forward. The long-term fix is bringing back the capital facilities zoning for where we have reservoirs, where we have well located that allows these things without undue cost or undue process. So Eric was trying to be nice to the former planning director, but he's trying to put a Band-Aid on this. And as we go through the comp plan, you're probably going to see the capital facility zoning coming back on our facilities. But look at well 2, look at well 3, well 10 ASR, well 12R, Belmont Reservoir, well 1, your sewer lift stations that we're all in process right now. This causes a big wrench. So it puts all those projects on hold, opens them up for more conditions that we don't have funding for, that you're going to put on yourself. So again, this is a text amendment that I asked for to fix a problem that came up 4 years ago when that zoning went away until the comprehensive plan can be updated. So we're not looking at putting anything new in a neighborhood or allowing that. This is our own facilities that previously was capital. I forgot what it was called now. Capital improvement, I think, or capital facility was the zoning. So anyway, that's a little more background. So if you go back prior to, I don't remember if it was 2020 or early 2019, I don't remember exactly what the date was, but
During our last comp plan amendment. It was. Thank you for the update to share with council the roadblocks and challenges that it brings forth to Public Works as they move forward with the development and the growth of the city. Councilmember Stoker.
Yes, thank you for that, Roscoe. That's good to know. I don't recall the capital facility zone myself, but I'm not going to argue with that. My one concern is that there was a comment dropped that well, in many ways, about streamlining city processes for the city. And a concern I have with that is why is the city any different than any other entity that wants to do something, whether it's a business that's non-conforming and yet wants to do something. So I'm struggling with both sides of this because, I want to be fair to the other side of the aisle as well. If we get streamlined, why doesn't everybody else get their processes streamlined as well when they try to get a permit to build something somewhere? So, we ran into that before we put in the downtown mixed use, where there were residences that was now commercial zoning. Residences they were a non-conforming use. And so, in my opinion, a lot of people like to complain about the deterioration or the blight that they consider in the downtown area. Well, part of that could be because of the change in the zoning that forced people not to be able to do things to their properties after that because they were non-conforming, even though they were grandfathered in. So I guess I'm struggling with this from that perspective of making it easier for the city when we possibly could be sticking it to the other side. Thank you.
Councilmember Moran.
Thank you very much. Two things. First, I was wondering, I just noticed here in this, I went back and looked at the code again, and according to the code that I just pulled up, it is currently major utility facilities are not allowed at all in parks, and they're conditional use for everything. So it just looks slightly different in this. So it might be something that I'm just noticing that's a ooly. But the other thing, I think that when it comes to streamlining things, it is important to me in cases where it's allowable to us, because if we streamline it, that means there's less staff time used for it, less money from the city to do these things that for the most part seem like they tend to go through. And it seems like the things that would be really possibly debatable and not wanted by some neighbors would already have a SEPA, so they would know about it. Is that accurate, Mr. Mendenhall?
I would have to pull the SEPA rules. I don't have that in front of me to give you a certain answer on that at the moment. But yeah, we have a Flat Top Park has a well that the council has approved for re-drilling and getting that rehabbed. And so that's a concern when it's not allowed in the park, right, at all. And so that's a lot of what's initiated this was just all of those projects. Roscoe's being nice. I'm actually not, I don't care about the past planning director and what screws up. They find Easter eggs all the time and what they've done. I'm being nice to Roscoe to trying to help facilitate those 7 projects, but also trying to take into consideration too, the tax dollars that would effectively just be wasted. Councilmember Bloom is spot on. Every one of these projects you all approve and look at this, the utility subcommittee looks at the siting of it and everything before it even gets approved. And so you all already have the approval or disapproval ability now that this just creates a redundant process to go back through and create some staff time that, quite frankly, we do not have. You saw the budget. We're already being squished for time. So this is just trying to alleviate that, trying to create a more fluid process for us and to get these things through so it's not as difficult.
So, Councilmember Moran, every one of those projects I list either go through SEPA, if they've got federal dollars, we're going through NEPA. So all these concerns are addressed. Go look at our well site, go look at our reservoir. We do take extreme effort to mitigate these, but before we're buying property, we know we're doing a capital facility and going through this. Again, I didn't see it when they did away with the zoning and took it out, not allowing it anywhere else. But all these projects have the potential to be stopped.
Thank you.
If you don't.
Thank you. And I would also say that I think it also means that there needs to be a trust in our representative republic that because it is coming to those on the subcommittees, that they are going to be the ones to say, hey, this doesn't make sense to put near a residence, for instance. So there are stopgaps that we have in place. So we're not just going to put a sewage lagoon all of a sudden in the middle of a neighborhood without a lot of discussion, just to calm fears that people might have. We're just not going to do it without tons of discussion and a lot of public input, I'm sure. So thank you.
Sir, there's no comments from the council or from the audience this time. Appreciate it. Yeah. No, yeah, you're welcome to be an observer of the council's business. This is our business meeting here. Yes, very good. Thank you. Councilmember Smart.
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask another question about the difference between major and minor utility facilities and the difference between maintaining or replacing a water pump or a well pump versus installing one fresh and new. I would agree that there should be very minimal process required to, do maintenance or to, install a bigger pump. If the facility has to grow by, if the building around the pump has to grow or there's some significant external change from a facility that's been there for who knows 20 years, well, then I think there ought to be a review process. But if it's some sort of maintenance or something that's not going to change the impact to neighbors in any discernible fashion, then I would say there's no reason to have a conditional or no reason to have a conditional use.
We're not talking maintenance. Operation maintenance, not talking. These are all capital improvement projects. The 7 I just gave you off the top of my head are multi-million-dollar large facilities, expanding the footprint or extending the pump capacity that have already been planned. Your prior planning director made all these non-conforming uses and puts these projects all in jeopardy. I can't explain it any clearer than that. These are every one of these is in a spot that already has an existing facility, and we've already gone through the environmental, the SEPA and the NEPA for these projects. They're already ready. Understood. I mean, the well 2 is ready and 3 are about ready to go out to add, which would delay months.
Well, so I don't understand if
it's not allowed.
They were already there, why would anybody need to do a conditional use reapplication?
So just as Mr. Stoker said, with the mixed use zoning, you can use the existing footprint for what you have there, but you're not allowed to expand it or change it or do anything in your code. So
why not just define the difference between major and minor utilities and call this something, if I'm going to put in a new facility in a neighborhood.
Yeah,
that it didn't
Councilmember
exist
Smart, this
before.
is a way to keep 7 multi-million-dollar projects moving forward. Without it, they will stop. I don't know how to explain it any other way simple. What went before council several years ago should have never went through. It's like telling you can't have in residential, you can't have your residential house. And you want to do an addition, but you can't do it now because residential homes aren't allowed in a residential neighborhood. I mean, that's where we're at with this.
I don't feel that we are bound by past decisions, whether they're the ones we made 2 months ago or the ones that somebody made 20 years ago. These projects have been approved and, like you said, are in progress. We're not going to put them to a screeching halt just because this code doesn't change tonight. No,
Yes,
I can't believe it.
They're not allowed in the zoning. I don't know how to be any more clear with it. Flat out, not allowed in parks. Well, 2 will stop.
And how much time would it take us then to
3 months.
proceed?
3 months for me to apply to go through a conditional use permit. And I can only think of hundreds of thousands of dollars we're going to lose. And I don't know what the time limits on the funding, whether pushing those projects out puts our grant, our federal, state, and grant money at jeopardy. I don't know.
I find it hard to believe that we don't have a way on this body to make a waiver for these currently progressing projects on this topic. I just don't see it.
That's what's before you this evening.
I mean, no, this is not the way to make a waiver. That's not the way to do this right. Let's make a different proclamation or declaration. The current projects can continue, but the ones in the future continue properly with either the better definition of major and minor, and then ultimately get the zoning changed like it's supposed to be so that we don't have to put strange things in neighborhoods. We've got commercial plots of land, or not commercial, I'm sorry, utility plots of land in the future for our new developments that are coming up, like you've suggested. Let's do it right. I don't like this Band-Aid. I think it's dangerous.
Councilmember Bloom?
I just want to point out one little oversight here. Actually, under minor, it's wells. And we didn't adjust the well table for minors for parks. So I'm not quite sure we fit everything. I would suggest we expand the scope of this to include putting a permitted for parks for minors. Is it? I mean, do you agree? I'm looking at the code right now and minors are not allowed in parks as well as majors. And wells are listed as minors.
Yeah, that would be a amendment in the suggested motion, which would be to allow it in allow major and minor utility facilities in all zones.
Yes, that's.
Seeing no more conversation, council, is there amended motion?
I would like to amend the motion to include minor as well as major utility facilities as permitted in all zones.
Second.
Okay, we've already had our conversation. Motion second to the amendment. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, like sign.
Nay.
Nay.
Carried. 5-2. Thank you, council. So we're going to go ahead and move on. We have no unfinished business this evening, nor do we have unfinished business or new business. So that brings us to the second opportunity for citizen public comment. If you'd like to address council, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and allow 3 minutes. We'll start with in-house comments first, and then we'll go to the virtual attendees. Sir?
My name is Matt Sammons. I'm at catch my breath. 3750 Grant Loop in West Richland, obviously. So I've got a lot of emotion behind what I want to share, and I promise I'll keep it within my 3 minutes. This is in reference to Chief Grego, who is still very much sitting in front of us in this room as the chief. I think I have a unique perspective of this issue that I would like for you all to hear, as well as our community. I was an employee of Chief Gregos, not as an officer, but I served as the executive director for the Columbia Basin Veterans Center for 5 years. And for most of that time, he was my board chair. And that nonprofit went through a lot of growing pains. And so you can imagine there was a lot of hard conversations that I had with the chief. The emotion that I have behind this is I was going through a lot of hard times myself personally, as he was my chair and my mentor. And there's some things, some conversations that him and I have had that in hindsight I'm not proud of, but they showed me a lot of depth in his character, and I'm going to out myself in sharing these stories because I think you need to hear them. When I hit a hard time, I was due at that time for a raise, and it just wasn't working out in the budget, and it wasn't working out with the board, and very real reasons. And in a phone conversation with the chief, I was frustrated and upset, and I brought a personal issue of his into the conversation. He did not lose his cool. He did not change his professionalism. He just simply addressed the issue and continued on the path of what the board had suggested. In hindsight, if someone did that to me, I would have ripped them apart. But he didn't. He maintained his professionalism. And I've seen him do that throughout so many challenges that we faced at the Veterans Center. He was the one keeping his cool. He was the one pulling us aside and saying, you really need to calm down, in a very literal sense in some ways. But one thing and another thing that's behind my emotion with this is that this man has served our country since he was 18 years old. He's fought on foreign soil to ensure that we have the opportunity to sit in front of council like this and express our thoughts as citizens. And he's done that here domestically too, his entire life. So I really would love and implore anyone watching online, anyone seeing the rhetoric on Facebook or wherever you're reading it, do your due diligence. Read and actually find out what's happening. Find out what's happening, and you'll find out that there was a third-party investigation with no bias that cleared his name. You'll find out that this is a good man that we should send home at some point with honor, because damn it, if he doesn't deserve it, then none of us do. Thank you.
Anyone else this evening?
Dan Ritchie, 508 Austin Drive. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. Just as we heard from the last speaker, there's a lot of emotion wrapped up into the complaint that's been filed by the Police Officers Association and all of both complaints and all of the going back and forth and the different entities that have been involved, and now the half a dozen or more lawyer teams that are going to come in here and take all of our money and produce what? And so to that end, I can't help but propose that we all take a chill, and the 24 people that are on the screen here, the 24 people that are in this room, is that we give the mayor a couple of minutes to take and get this sorted out and get everything calmed down, and then tell us where it's at. The boogeyman is always bigger in the dark, and an awful lot of what we're seeing here is the boogeyman. We don't know what the facts are. We don't know what all this is about. We don't know. And so to that end, I'd like to give you the latitude, Mayor, to help us to understand. Thank you.
What else?
My name again and everything?
Yes, sir.
Lloyd
please.
Bender. I'm 786 South 38th Avenue. Just what Bosco was talking about here, about this, we already had a capital projects plot set out in district plot set out. What concerns me about this whole thing that just happened here is we had a program already that was intelligent and laid out like it was supposed to be. And I've been in the construction business for years, built 5,000 plus homes and buildings all over the west side. And I understand that what we have up here made a decision to take away what we had already established. And what worries me is our council didn't understand what they were doing when they got rid of that when the previous planning director was here. Didn't understand that. And they can further not understand something else. And then it cuts we the people out of our government, right? Because no matter how you cut this is our government. You work for us, right? Right? You work for us. And so that whole thing is ours to talk, to discuss, as ours to be, to know, and what's happening with here. And so it bothers me that we made a mistake so drastic like this, that we put our utilities in this kind of a bind because of it's just flat out ignorance on the part of the council. You didn't know what you were voting on, didn't understand what you were doing, and you took the advice of a former person, and you created now a problem where we don't get to have our input. And that's not the way government's supposed to run. You get your just powers from we under our consent. It doesn't change from federal, state, or right here local. Right? And that's where what we're doing is we seem to just disregarding the people. And that goes clear down to this kind of issue here, or that we can't go online and see what's happening on our website, at the city website. We can't go on and see what's happening with our police department, what things are going on, because that's on Facebook. It has no business on Facebook. It has to be on our website. That's what we pay for. People that don't get on that thing don't see that stuff. But we want to see all this information here. We want to know when someone's made a vote that's changed the planning ordinance. We want to know what's happening. We want to see that stuff. It's not that hard. In 40 hours, really? You guys pissed away more than 40 hours in the city. I worked for the city of Richland for years, and I know we pissed away way more money and time than that. And so I think it's a BS, kind of a dodgeball thing we want to play. We're just, well, too much time. I understand that, but it never would have been this way in the first place if you'd have known what you were voting on when you took away that district. And that's what concerns me. We can't rely on you. On the west side, we saw this already. We saw them, they cut through our yards, they tore out, they went out into Snohomish County and built a huge sewage place because they couldn't do it in the city, because they didn't plan for it, because they did dumb things like this. And then the people were stuck paying for it and footing the bill for everything and have their land torn apart. You know, I mean, they lost big digging machines underground. They ran it out miles outside of town. And we had to pay for a whole nother, all this cleanup and stuff out of an old junkyard to take care of it.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Bender. Your time is up.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else from the audience? Mr. Bender, please refrain yourself. Thank you. Anybody else in the audience? Okay. Seeing no one, we'll go virtually. Raise your hand or *9 to be recognized. I see no one else virtually. Stephanie, do you?
I do not see anyone with their hand up, no.
And we will go ahead and move on to staff council announcements and reports and comments. Anybody from the staff side that has anything for us this evening? Seeing no one from staff. I see, there she is, Stephanie down there.
I just wanted to let the council know that we are planning a council workshop for next Tuesday. I believe it's the 28th at 5:30 p.m. So stay tuned to your email for that agenda. It'll be posted on Thursday morning.
Thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate it. And council. Reports, comments, announcements. Councilmember Bloom.
I think I'll respond a little bit to Mr. Bender's comments. I'm one of the old timers on the council. The error was not in eliminating the utility district. It was in production of the table. This was a consequence of the table, and not when the evolution of our code is an evolution. There was no protection with the utility, with the city property. And as council, we felt that it was a free-for-all. They could do anything they wanted on those properties that were zoned that way. And so the concern with major utility districts was, like I said, putting a sewer plant in the middle or a water reservoir, which was something I personally, prior to getting on council, fought and through the SEPA process won to protect the citizens nearby. But it isn't that we don't think about what we're doing. It is, you know, some of us may, in the past, may have been guilty of that, but for the great part, we look at these things and they go through the planning commission as well. And some things are oversight. And like I said, you know, that we added the parks to have the well in the park, which we've had the well in the park forever. That was an oversight. And we just corrected it. And, you know, as far as a major utility facility designation, there might be some, we're probably going to have water towers out there on the site. We'll have to cite them, and that be it. But I don't see it as a sin of the past of the council. So just to clarify that.
And then to respond to that as well, it's not the 7 individuals you see here. It's only, there was 6.
It's only me.
It was only you. So yeah, not the action of these 6 individuals here. So there you go. You took the hit count. There you go. Councilmember Smart.
Yes, I just want to acknowledge, and make sure that although we can't have discussion back and forth, that we did hear Mr. Bender, Mr. Baker, Miss Aldrich. I have actually written down each of the points, Miss Nelson, that were noted tonight. And so although we can't discuss them, we will find times amongst ourselves to talk about those topics. And so that's all I can do at this point, is acknowledge that we hear you. I will, hopefully, I'll still have good working relationships with our department heads. It was kind of a philosophical thing, and I realized this would go through for this motion that we just adopted. But I'm going to continue to work to hopefully get those zonings changed in the future and make sure that we do have good plans, and that anything that will affect residents, regardless of what the ordinance says, will be brought to residents as appropriate. I think everybody here has those sentiments, but I've been warned before not to speak for council, so I'll just speak for myself, that I would endeavor to make sure that would happen. We are citizens here in West Richland, and we have telephones too, and email and so forth, and we're free to communicate to citizens as is required, unless it's some sort of sensitive topic, which is rare. So I wouldn't get too worried that, a sewer plant's going to get put in a residential neighborhood anytime soon, but it's just not going to happen. And I know Roscoe, and certainly with this administration, it's not going to happen. So, but these things are long-term, and I like to try to make them right when we make a decision, so that we don't have to go back and change it, just like we kind of had to do tonight. So there are 2 other topics I wanted to bring up that I've repeated. One of those things about zoning changes that I'd like to see happen, and I'm sure Mr. Mendenhall has this on his list, I hope, is to, perfect the residential medium 6,000 square foot regs. I'm not happy with the way those currently work, because we're able to put what I consider to be relatively high density housing in something that I thought was supposed to be residential neighborhood, something akin to what we see in the Bird Hill homes. But we can now put townhouses and condos and all sorts of things, not skyscrapers, no, but bigger than I had imagined. And I think bigger than most council members had imagined at the time that regulation was put in place. So I'd like to readdress that. I'd like the mayor to put that on our to-do list. Again, I'll make that request here on the record, that we have a workshop in the future to address that. And then also, I want to just reiterate my request that when a citizen writes a letter to the council, it doesn't need to be read during a council meeting. That's not really our obligation, but I really think that it should be added to the council record, so that we have it as a document, as a public opinion that was expressed by somebody who didn't or couldn't come to a meeting, but took the time to write a letter. And so in the past, not so distant past, we've had dozens of letters written to council on particular topics. And really, as far as I'm concerned as a council member, they're not recorded where I can easily get to them. I could do a Freedom of Information Act request, but I don't want to do that. I'd like them just to be added to our council packet. It's all electronic. It doesn't take any copying. And it might take a few extra minutes to cut and paste into the packet, but I really cherish those letters from citizens. And I think we need to include them in the packet record. It's a pretty simple request. So that's all my comments for tonight. Thank you for your ear.
Member? Councilmember Moran?
Thank you very much. And I would like to also echo that thank you all for speaking. There are things that we cannot respond to based off of just particular subjects, but please know that we did listen to every single, I at least, I can't speak for anybody else. I at least was listening to every single person that was on there, including the folks that Councilmember Smart had mentioned, and also Mr. I apologize, Salmons, also, because I didn't hear your name mentioned, but definitely as well. Thank you for being with the Veterans Center. I go to the Veterans Center often for services, so appreciate all that y'all do there. I will say that last Friday, there was a Benton Franklin Council of Governments meeting, and we did hear something that hopefully will be good news, that during this year, we should expect to see the train speed go from 5 miles per hour to 10 miles per hour. Yes, and hopefully by next year, we should be able to get them up to 25 miles per hour based on the construction that they're going to be doing and the upgrading of the roads, or sorry, the rails that they have there that go through the Tri-Cities. That's for the Port of Benton specifically. So looking forward to not waiting in 5 p.m. traffic for the train to go through because somebody decided to block the entire intersection. So that's good to hear. Also, there is going to be a presentation coming up soon in March or April from Tanner regarding the regional traffic count program. So we should look forward to that. There's a call for projects coming up. So hopefully we're ready to go for that. There's also some funding availability that has been found by the grant navigator, Kristen Eby, I believe her name is. And I had requested that they got sent to the city. There's some regarding JAG, some regarding BLM land, also Department of Commerce and Department of Justice. And I've requested that that all got sent to us and that she could try and help us find some specific to the city so that we can get some of that sweet, sweet money that we should be getting. Let's see. And let's see, that is... Yep, that's all I got from Benton Franklin Council of Government. So that's all. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Bloom had a comment in regards to
Just
the
a
rail
question,
system.
yeah. Any thought of limiting the length of the trains?
I don't think that we're able to even affect that. We can't even request that we know when the trains are coming through because the law does not allow us to require that. They can just run them when they want.
Thank you. Councilmember Hayes?
Thank you, Mayor. The exciting news coming up with the Veterans Cemetery, the regional council governments, but the regional chamber, there's a workshop retreat kind of thing coming up on Thursday and Friday. And what they've done is they put the veteran cemeteries plans on the top 6 in the Tri-Cities. So that keeps everybody aware of what's going on. And we are down to 2 locations. And so we're trying to work through that on the land issue is the most important part, is getting the land first and then taking it off from there. But so I'll bring back more news from the conference. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm really excited about how this project has moved forward in this last 2 years that we've been 2.5 years we've been working on it. So it's really exciting for the veterans and their families and all the community. And then the other thing that I'd like to say is I take it very serious. I was elected by the people for the people. And so that responsibility I take very serious. I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight and speaking up. And so knowing that everybody has a voice and we want to hear it. And it just makes it really great when we have so many people that come out and are online to help us through different issues. My biggest hope is that we can work together to achieve transparency in all issues that we do throughout the city. So I just once again thank you guys for coming, having your input. It means a lot to us, or to me. I can't speak for the others. Means a lot that you're out there and you care and you're sharing information. So thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Brink, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And rather than repeat what has been said by several council members already, on your monthly utility bill insert, you have the names and the email addresses for all your council members here. I invite you to send me and your fellow council members an email. I will respond. I say it again, I will respond to every email that I receive. You may not like my response, but there's only one that I've missed that I'm acutely aware of, and for some reason I just didn't get it. But I invite you to do that. We don't all have time to come to council meetings. You're very busy. So send an email. You do that, I'll answer it. Thank you.
Mark, you have something else?
Yeah, so that's a great comment, Mayor Pro Tem Brink. I would note that there have been some emails I've received that I cannot directly respond to. So there are some that are topics that are part of executive session or some sensitive thing that might have to do with litigation. We as council members, we can get in big trouble if we engage in conversations about those things. So just know there are a couple rare exceptions, like I mentioned before. But yes, absolutely, I would endeavor to do the same. Thank you.
And thank you, Councilmember Smart, but I will acknowledge at least receipt of the email.
That's fair enough. Yeah.
Received, but I can't comment.
Yeah.
And that, that's a good segue into my brief comments that I have this evening. I look at the online screen, probably the biggest one I've ever seen in the history of virtual participation in the city council. Appreciate everybody here that's online. I appreciate Mr. Ritchie's comments. I did have a conversation with Mr. Ritchie this afternoon. He's a very active individual and as a citizen as well as a supporter of the city council. Sometimes we agree to disagree, but that's okay. Some of the questions that he asked me, I wasn't able to make answers because I don't have finding of fact. I do not watch Facebook for particular reasons. It's opinions. It's not factual. It's rumors. There is some factual things that are out there, but until I have all of the finding of fact, we don't make decisions here in comments. We don't act in that manner. It's been frustrating for the last year for the chief, the staff, everybody involved in this whole thing. There's a lot of moving parts out there, people. A lot of moving parts. And I do not do knee-jerk reactions and make decisions in regards to allegations without finding of fact. Third-party analysis takes it out of the hands of a potential bias staff member or a member of the police department or the council itself. I look for a third party to do a thorough investigation of allegations, and I take every allegation seriously, everyone, whether it be an elected official, whether it be an employee of the city. And until I get the finding of fact from a unbiased third party, we do not comment. And it's very frustrating to sit behind our desk every day and have to listen to everything we can't comment on. You don't know how hard it is to bite your tongue. Once we get finding of fact, then we will let everybody know what the third party findings are and the decisions that I make based off of those third parties. It's not my first rodeo in this particular situation. And one of the individuals that we hired last time was the same individual we hired before. Just because somebody doesn't like the outcome, I can't control that. I'm making my decisions on facts, and that's what we will do here. And when the facts are out, then the citizens of the city of West Richland will hear them as well. So with that, we are going to adjourn into an executive session. This executive session is pursuant of the RCW 423110I to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency in matters related to potential litigation to which an agency is likely to become a party. This executive session will last approximately 15 minutes. If we need to extend it, we will have Stephanie come out and extend the executive session. There will be no actions to follow this executive session this evening. So with 15 minutes, and if I can make my calculations accordingly, it'll be 7:25-ish after we get into executive session. So thank you very much for participating this evening. And we will be back after our executive session to adjourn our meeting if you wish to stay with us. Missing 1, 2. Yep. Council members, please come to the dais. We have a couple people online, right? I know, even that's a good way. All right, we have just come out of executive session and no action to follow as mentioned earlier, and adjourn the meeting at 9:02 Tuesday, the 21st. Thank you.